Everyone loved Zathura when it first came out, and it looks like Dwayne Johnson might be gearing up to produce a reboot. We're not gonna lie, we're pretty psyched to see what he can come up with. Be sure to stick around till the end of the video to find out more about what The Rock has in store for us. Let's get right into it. First up, what does Dwayne have to offer? Dwayne Johnson is gearing up to produce a reboot of the little-known family adventure movie, Zathura. This is the latest project that the actor has invested in, and considering the success of his previous two movies, you can be sure that this is just another box office hit in the making. Johnson is set to produce and possibly star in the film, as he's done so in both of his previous films. The actor has now graduated to producer status after becoming the highest paid actor in the world. The man simply can't stop himself from getting one success after another. Now, some of you might be wondering why the megastar is investing his money into a movie franchise that almost no one talks about. Despite coming out as a sci-fi movie during a time when sci-fi was arguably the best genre in the world, Zathura didn't do the best, and despite all the effort put into the making of this movie, it was considered a box office flop. So fast forward to the present day, and here we have Dwayne Johnson, who somehow sees potential within the movie and wants to add it to the Jumanji multiverse. We're not gonna lie, with the Fast and Furious franchise finally coming to an end, we don't mind another worthy successor stepping up to take its place. Next up, is Zathura related to Jumanji? When it was first released, the only thing connecting the two movies was the fact that Robin Williams starred in both. However, it wasn't long before fans noticed that both movies had very similar plot lines. A magical board game causes the players to go through some insane adventure. Considering what passes for a franchise these days, it didn't take much before fans started wondering whether the two films were somehow from a shared universe. Well, all you conspiracy theorists can rest at last, because Dwayne Johnson has taken it upon himself to make sure the franchise gets the multiverse it deserves. Dwayne has been quoted to have called himself franchise. Now, while the statement without any context might seem a bit over the top, what he means is that if a franchise is going downhill, all they need to do is bring him in to clean up the mess. We're not gonna lie, considering almost every franchise from the DC universe to Fast and Furious has utilized The Rock this way, that might not be that far from the truth. To answer your earlier question, the answer is yes and no. Now, before you start scratching your heads in confusion, let us clarify. What we mean is that upon their respective releases, the two movies weren't supposed to be directly related, but thanks to fans, the latest news suggests that they'll now be connected. Coming up, is a shared universe the best idea? Shared cinematic multiverses have been all the rage since the release of Iron Man in 2008. Its release kicked off one of the biggest cinematic multiverses today, the MCU. After seeing how successful Marvel was at the whole movie franchise thing, a lot of other film series turned their projects into franchises as well. Of course, we're talking about the DC universe, the Fast and Furious movies, and so on. So when you look at things from that perspective, you'll quickly realize that franchising, at least in today's world, is the best way to keep a film series from dying out. I mean, think about it. You unlock the ability to leave the audience on a cliffhanger every time. You no longer have to try and fit the entire plot into a 2 or 3 hour time slot. Now, you can take a step back and expand your story as much as you want. The best part is, even if you miss the mark on a few movies, the bigger picture says otherwise. Thanks to the large number of movies you just made for your franchise, you're just making some profit. So, in a gist, yes, in our opinion, turning Jumanji into a cinematic universe is a pretty good step. It's also the perfect time to step into this sort of thing, because as we said, the market for huge cinematic universes is pretty high, and people are just gobbling it up. The Rock may have just cashed into the best investment possible. Finally, when are we going to see the birth of the Jumanji universe? At this point, it's been confirmed that a Zathura movie is in the making. However, the question most people will be asking themselves is, when exactly are we going to see the famed remake hit the big screens? Well, according to sources, the third Jumanji film is set to release sometime in 2023. That means it could very well serve as a sort of gateway into the Zathura mythology. There are a couple of ways the producers could achieve this sort of effect on their audience. For all we know, there could be a scene toward the end of the third film that could allude to the fact that a Zathura film is coming very soon. Whatever happens, we know one thing for sure, and that's the fact that we're hyped to see what The Rock can bring to the table. So far, almost every movie The Rock has starred in has always been a success. There's a reason why he was the highest paid actor in the world for a while. It seems like The Rock is slowly transitioning from the world of acting into the world of producing, and eventually directing entire movies. All that remains now is to see whether The Rock can put out another hit. Only this time, there's a good chance that he'll be behind the camera instead of staring us down with that famous stare of his. Who knows, maybe his move to move into the role of a producer might end up paying off big time. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, let's check out a sci-fi flick that people seem to constantly forget. First up, what are people saying about Zathura nowadays? The early 90s and 2000s were dominated by Robin Williams. It was during this period that he came out with two awesome sci-fi flicks. However, while one of them went on to become a huge success, the other was seemingly forgotten, disappearing into the endless abyss of new movies being released every other month. In case you're confused, we're talking about Zathura. The movie, like Jumanji, is just a bunch of kids who play a magical board game that transports them into a terrifying yet awesome sci-fi adventure. Even though the concept was almost the same as Jumanji, somehow Jumanji ended up making bank, and Zathura ended up flopping. However, thankfully in recent times, Jumanji star Jack Black and producer Hiram Garcia talked a bit about the two movies, and admitted that since there were so many similarities shared between the two movies, there was a good chance that they'd end up connecting the two universes and building a whole lore out of it. Next up, how come Zathura flopped? This is a question we're sure everyone who worked on the film asked themselves after it became apparent that as good as the film was, it wasn't going to have any real profit. See, to understand why the film flopped, you'll need to brush up on the movie's story, which, by the way, is pretty much the same as Jumanji. Now, when you look at how Zathura did on Rotten Tomatoes, you'll see that it got a pretty decent score of 71%. Again, if you compare it to today, where movies with a 40% rating go on to become hits, you'd think Zathura struck a gold mine. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. See, the thing is, since it came out after Jumanji, people likely considered it to be a ripoff. We mean, think about it. The plot lines of both movies are almost the exact same, with the exception of the fact that one movie takes place in outer space and the other in a jungle. Taking this into account, it's not hard to imagine that people probably thought that the movie was a ripoff and wanted their money back. Finally, would a crossover be worth it? Let's take a look at the facts, shall we? Jumanji got remade with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood and was a worldwide success. Everybody loved the movie, and no one complained. The second movie came out and people loved it once again. So now the question is, why wouldn't people love a remake of Zathura as well? It seems like the best way to ensure the success of the movie would be to get a cast of insanely talented and famous actors, hand them a script, assign roles, and voila, you should be good. However, we have to take into account the fact that there's a chance that the same thing that happened back in 2005 could happen here as well. That's why a crossover of the two films' universes makes the most sense. Think about it. The one problem that people would have likely had back when it was first released was the fact that they thought the film was copying Jumanji. If you lump both of the movies together, you get to satisfy those hardcore Jumanji fans and get a new movie made with half the effort and minimal risk. That's probably what went through Dwayne Johnson's head when he first decided to make a remake of this film. The man has great ideas, and of that, we have no doubt. However, it remains to be seen whether this latest idea/investment of his is even the tiniest bit profitable. Again, when you put two and two together, making the two movies crossover gets you a huge payday. We guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Zathura deserves another shot? Should Dwayne be the one to revive it? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.